Let's get right into it. Number 10. The dropped wrench. In Damascus, Arkansas, 1980, a maintenance worker at a nuclear missile silo almost ended the world with a socket wrench. During a routine check on a Titan II missile carrying a 9-megaton nuclear warhead, 600 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb, the unthinkable happened. The worker dropped his socket wrench from 80 feet above the missile. The socket bounced off the platform and took the worst possible trajectory. It fell straight down and punctured the missile's fuel tank. The missile used hypergolic fuel, a type of propellant so dangerous it doesn't even need a spark to explode. It just needs to meet its oxidizer and instant fireworks. After evacuation, they sent in a team to fix the leaking nuclear missile. These guys walked into a giant bomb that could explode any second. Hours passed, and the fuel vapors kept building up. At 3 a.m., the whole thing exploded. The explosion launched the 740-ton silo door into the air like a frisbee. It threw the nuclear warhead into a nearby ditch. Thankfully, the warhead's safety features worked, and it didn't detonate, or we'd be learning about this in a post-apocalyptic history class. One person died in the explosion, and the entire facility was destroyed. And this wasn't even the first time something like this had happened at other facilities, but nobody had bothered to change the procedures or design. Number 9. The sky exploded. You're driving to work in Russia. Just another boring morning in 2013. The sky is dark, it's freezing cold, and you're thinking about what's for lunch. Then suddenly, the whole sky lights up brighter than the sun. A massive explosion rocks your world. Windows are shattering everywhere. Car alarms are going crazy. And you're sitting there wondering if World War III just started. But it wasn't nuclear war or aliens. It was just a space rock. This was the Chelyabinsk meteor, and it was a serious wake-up call. This chunk of cosmic debris was only about 60 feet wide, basically the size of a house, but it was moving at 40,000 miles per hour. That's fast enough to go from New York to Los Angeles in about 4 minutes. When it hit our atmosphere, it created an explosion 30 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb. And nobody saw it coming. Not NASA, not Russia's space program. Nobody. It came from the direction of the sun. That's like trying to spot a bullet while staring directly into a spotlight. Over 1,500 people got hurt, mostly from windows exploding inward, and more than 7,000 buildings were damaged across 6 cities. If this rock had hit just a few hours later, it could have exploded over a more densely populated area, or if it had come in at a slightly different angle, it could have hit the ground instead of exploding in the air. We're talking about a crater the size of several football fields and massive destruction, and this wasn't even a big asteroid. It was basically the cosmic equivalent of a pebble. Number 8. The Bear and the Bomb. At Duluth Air Force Base in Minnesota, during the peak of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, a guard spots something climbing the fence in the darkness. He shoots at it and hits the alarm, setting off a chain reaction across multiple military bases. At Volk Field in Wisconsin, something goes terribly wrong. Instead of receiving the intruder alert signal, they get the nuclear war is starting signal. Nuclear-armed F-106A interceptors prepare for immediate takeoff. The pilots sprint to their planes, ready to deliver their nuclear payload. These guys think this is it, the real deal. Back at the base, they found the intruder, just a black bear looking for a midnight snack. But Volk Field doesn't know this. They're about to launch nuclear-armed fighters based on a bear's curiosity. At the last possible second, a car speeds onto the runway. An officer jumps out, frantically waving his arms. He'd called Duluth and learned about the bear. The fighters were stopped just seconds before taking off. The bear escaped, completely unaware it had nearly triggered nuclear Armageddon during the most dangerous period of the Cold War. Number 7. The Ghost in the Machine. Stuxnet was the world's first real cyber weapon, and it showed the world how to break civilization. Back in 2010, computer security experts found something weird, a piece of malware that wasn't stealing credit card numbers or sending spam emails. This thing was looking for something very specific. Most computer viruses just mess with your files or steal your data, but Stuxnet could reach out into the real world and break actual physical stuff. It could make nuclear power plants malfunction, factory machines tear themselves apart, and make dams release all their water at once. Stuxnet would sneak into computers through USB drives. Then it would check if it was in the right place, specifically looking for certain types of industrial control systems. If it found what it was looking for, it would make centrifuges spin too fast until they broke, all while telling the operators everything was fine. It's like replacing your car's speedometer with one that always shows 55 miles per hour, even when you're actually doing 200 and about to explode your engine. But then Stuxnet started spreading everywhere. It infected over 200,000 computers across the globe. The code was now out there for anyone to study, copy, and modify. And it showed the world something terrifying. Our entire civilization runs on computers that can be hacked. Your power, your water, your food supply, all of it depends on the same kind of industrial systems that Stuxnet was designed to break. Number 6. The year summer was cancelled. Imagine waking up to snow in July. That's exactly what happened in 1816, when people worldwide experienced the weirdest summer ever. Farmers would plant their crops on a sunny day, only to find them frozen solid the next morning. Birds dropped dead mid-flight because the air was too cold for them to stay alive. This wasn't just a weird weather week, the entire year was like this. It all started with a volcano in Indonesia called Mount Tambora. This volcano exploded with the force of about 100,000 atomic bombs. The explosion was so loud people heard it 1,600 miles away. That's like standing in New York and hearing an explosion in Colorado. The blast shot so much ash into the air that it created a volcanic winter. The sun got blocked out by a giant ash umbrella. The sky turned strange colors for months. People thought the apocalypse had arrived. Crops failed everywhere. Food prices went through the roof. People started eating their pets. And there are even some dark stories about what desperate folks did to survive. Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein during this endless winter while she was stuck inside with her friends. They couldn't go outside because the weather was so terrible, so they had a contest to see who could write the scariest story. The first bicycle was also invented during this time. So many horses had died from starvation that a German inventor created a way to get around without having to feed it. Nobody at the time knew why any of this was happening. They thought God was punishing them. It wasn't until much later that scientists figured out it was all because of one angry volcano on the other side of the world. Number 5. The Overzealous War Game. The year is 1983. Reagan's calling the Soviet Union an evil empire. The Soviets just shot down a passenger plane, and everyone's finger is hovering over the big red button. Into this powder keg, NATO decides to run a war game called Able Archer 83. Usually these exercises are basic, but this time, NATO went all out. They used real troops, real encrypted messages, and real nuclear weapons procedures. It was like they were trying to make the most realistic game of pretend nuclear war ever. The Soviets didn't know it was pretend. Imagine being a Soviet spy watching all this unfold. NATO troops moving nuclear weapons, coded messages flying everywhere, and military bases going dark. The Soviets looked at all this and thought the game was a cover for a real surprise attack. So they started prepping their own nukes. Soviet nuclear bombers were fueled up and ready to go. Their missile silos were unlocked. They even put their nuclear submarines on standby. And NATO had no idea any of this was happening. They're playing their war game, while the Soviets are literally minutes away from launching actual nuclear weapons. Eventually, the exercise ended, NATO went home, and the Soviets realized it was all just a convincingly realistic game. But for a few days in November 1983, humanity came this close to accidentally nuking itself into oblivion because someone's role-playing game was a little too convincing. Number 4. When the sun spat fire. It was September 1859, and the height of technology was the telegraph. A British astronomer named Richard Carrington was staring at the sun when he saw something weird. 2 massive bright spots appeared, got super bright like cosmic high beams, and then exploded. When this solar storm hit Earth, things got weird fast. The night sky lit up with auroras so bright that people could read newspapers at midnight, not just in the north. We're talking about places like Cuba and Hawaii. People in the Rocky Mountains thought it was morning and started making breakfast at 1 a.m. The telegraphs started shooting out sparks, giving operators electric shocks, and some even caught fire. Some operators unplugged their batteries and found they could still send messages using just the electricity in the air. The sun had turned Earth into one giant battery. If this happened today, it would be an electromagnetic apocalypse. Our power grids would fry, our satellites would die, the internet would go dark, your phone would be worthless, your Tesla would become a very expensive paperweight. Experts say it could take months or even years to replace all the fried transformers, costing up to $10 trillion, and we are overdue. In 2012, we missed getting hit by a Carrington-level event by just 9 days. The blast shot through Earth's orbit, but we just happened to not be there when it passed. Number 3. The Forgotten Training Tape. On November 9, 1979, a NORAD technician almost kick-started World War III with a training tape. NORAD is America's early warning system for nuclear attacks. The technician accidentally loaded a training simulation into the live warning system. It was a simulation of a full-scale Soviet nuclear attack. Every screen at NORAD started lighting up. The computers showed hundreds of Soviet missiles heading straight for America. The emergency response kicked in immediately. Nuclear bombers started their engines. Missile crews headed to their stations. The president's emergency doomsday plane got ready for takeoff. For 6 minutes, the United States thought it was about to be wiped off the map. We were one phone call away from launching our own missiles in retaliation. Someone finally noticed the Soviet missiles were appearing in the exact same pattern as their training simulations and called it off. 3 days earlier, someone had made the exact same mistake, but they caught it faster that time. We came close to nuclear war because someone basically played the wrong DVD. Number 2. The hole in the sky. Back in the 1970s, scientists noticed something weird happening over Antarctica. The ozone layer, Earth's natural sunscreen, was disappearing. At first, they thought their equipment was broken. How could a protective layer of gas that's been keeping Earth safe for millions of years just vanish? But the equipment was working fine. We were the problem. We had invented CFCs, chemicals that made great refrigerants and aerosol sprays. The only problem was they were secretly destroying our planet's protection from deadly radiation. Every time someone used hairspray or turned on their fridge, these CFCs would float up into the sky. UV light would break them apart, releasing chlorine. And this chlorine was like a serial killer for ozone molecules. One single chlorine atom could destroy up to 100,000 ozone molecules. It's like sending one guy with a wrecking ball into a city of glass buildings. By the time scientists figured this out, there was already a hole in the ozone layer bigger than North America. Without the ozone layer, UV radiation would fry crops, blind animals, and give everyone skin cancer. It would be like living in a giant microwave set to slow cook. In a rare moment of global panic and cooperation, countries around the world banned CFCs, and it worked. The ozone layer is healing itself now and is expected to be back to normal by around 2060. This was a case where we almost accidentally destroyed the world, and then accidentally saved it. Number 1. The screen said, launch. On September 26, 1983, Stanislav Petrov was working the night shift when his computer screen lit up. 5 nuclear missiles were heading straight for his country. This wasn't a glitch or a drill. This was the Soviet Union's most advanced early warning system telling him America had just started World War III. Petrov had mere minutes to make a decision that would affect every human on Earth. The protocol was clear. If the system detected missiles, report it up the chain. And once that happened, the Soviet Union would launch their entire nuclear arsenal in retaliation. But something didn't feel right to Petrov. He thought, why would America only send 5 missiles? A real first strike would involve hundreds, even thousands of missiles. So he made an incredible decision. He decided the computer was wrong. He looked at a screen telling him the world was ending and reported it as a false alarm. He was right. The system had mistaken sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds for the engine plumes of nuclear missiles. The apocalypse was almost triggered by a computer glitch. If Petrov had followed protocol, the Soviet Union would have launched, America would have responded, and civilization would have ended over some shiny clouds. Ironically, Petrov was later disciplined for not following protocol and not filling out the proper paperwork during the incident. He was punished for preventing nuclear war. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.